from where you are to where you want to be. It turned out to be fairly easy to put one together. You merely list the value of your assets on one side of a piece of paper and the total of what you owe, called your liabilities, on the other side of the paper. Then by subtracting one from the other, you come up with what we call your current net worth. Now, it doesn't tell you what you are worth as a person, but rather what you are worth in money. I said to Mr. Schoaf, my financial statement isn't going to look that good. He said, it is not important how good it looks. What is important is that you do it. So I put that first financial statement together. I had plenty of liabilities, money I owed my parents, budget finance, my car, and all kinds of other debts. Now on the asset side, I really had to scrape the bottom of the barrel. I even put my shoes on the asset side. They were worth something. Wow, how embarrassing after 6 years of working. But it must be done. You don't have to put the results on a public bulletin board, because it's not important that the community knows how you are doing. It's not important that I know how you're doing, but it's desperately important that you know how you're doing. Here are some other points. First, keep excellent books, not only for tax purposes, but for yourself, your financial future, and for your own sense of self-worth. Have you ever heard the expression, I don't know where it all goes? Well, from now on, make a new commitment to financial independence and to the value and the feeling that comes from knowing where it all goes and where it all comes from. It is just one of those important disciplines that cause you to prove to yourself that you are on a new road, walking in a new direction, becoming a new person, and arriving at a new destination. Without that effort, you will keep falling back. Hey, I found out you can make $5,000 a month and still go broke. You say, how could you go broke making $5,000 a month? It's easy. Spend $6,000. And when you make $5,000, spending $6,000 is not that difficult. Someone once said, if your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep becomes your downfall. So, be the master over whatever you have and whatever you are. That's where the seeds of greatness are sown. Great wealth, great health, great results, great influence, and great lifestyle. Take interest and even delight in doing all the small things well. It makes you a sophisticated person who knows where the beginnings of wealth and happiness are. There's a Bible phrase that we could quote here that would be appropriate. It says, if you will be faithful over a few things, the small things, you will someday be ruler over many things and major things. That's it. That's the philosophy that counts. Surely life is reluctant to hand a fortune to someone who constantly messes up his paycheck. It's not the amount that counts. It's the plan and the faithful discipline of that plan that counts. The disciplines are those ingenious keys that unlock the door to the kind of person we really want to become. And becoming attracts all those treasures and values that most anyone would call the good life. Life in abundance, life in productivity, life in enterprise, life in influence, life in style. Now, to wind up this rather lengthy subject, let me close with this. Mr. Schoaf's best instructions to me in those early years were to develop a new attitude about myself, and a new attitude about all the principles that it takes to make life unique. Develop a new attitude about taxes, about paying your bills, about the marketplace, opportunity, your chances, wealth, activity, prosperity, service, productivity. Let me give you a good example of my old attitude. I used to say, I hate to pay my taxes. Schoaf said, well, you can live that way if you want to. That's one attitude. I was a bit perplexed. I thought it was the only attitude. How strange. I used to say, I hate to pay my bills. And he said, well, you can live that way if you want to. I thought it was the only way. I used to say, I hate to part with my money. He said, that's one choice for lifestyle and attitude. I thought, could it be that there is another way to feel about it? He said, what if you said, I love to pay my taxes, knowing it's the care and feeding of the goose that lays the golden eggs? What if you said, I love to pay my bills, reduce my liabilities, and increase my assets? What if you said, I love to part with my money, put it into circulation, help build this dynamic society? Wouldn't that be a better way to live if you loved to instead of hated to? What an incredible way to look at it. I bought the idea and started the practice. I will admit that it took me a while to actually say truthfully, I love to. But when I did, I found a completely unique new way to live. To love to instead of hate to. Shof even taught me to pay my bills with enthusiasm. He said, the next time you pay $100 on an account, put a note inside with your check that says, with great excitement I send you this $100. He said you won't believe what happens on the other end. They don't get many notes like that. But best of all, you won't believe what happens on your end. The new feeling of being in control and having a philosophy of life that brings joy instead of frustration. This whole new attitude will create for you a whole new world. Remember, it's something anyone can do. Mr. Shof got me to open my first savings account. He said, do you have a savings account? I said, I don't have enough money. And he reminded me, it's not the amount that counts, it's the plan. The important thing is to begin. Wealth is a plan, not an amount. He asked me if I had $10. I said, well, yes. He said, then open up your savings account and do it with your new attitude and enthusiasm. Well, that took some doing. I went to the bank in the town where I lived and walked in to open my account. I went to the window and told the lady I wanted to open up a savings account. She said, great. What is your name? I said, Mr. Rohn. She said, fine, Mr. Rohn, just fill out these papers. I filled them out, handed them back to her, and she said, that's all in order. Now, how are we going to get this account started? I said, put 10 in. She said, 10 what? I said, $10. Now, can you imagine the scene? I'm a grown man, 25 years old. I have a family, I'm working, and opening up my first savings account with $10. I said, hey, this may not seem like much, but I have a great plan. In fact, before long, I'll probably have the largest savings account in this bank. She said, well, if you say so. It was a bit embarrassing, I must admit, but Shof said, get excited about where you're going, and excited about the fact that you are one of the few who have a wealth plan in place and working. To make a long story short, guess what? Within less than 3 years, I did have the largest savings account in that bank. Now, it was just a small country bank, but I did reach my goal. What magic! And how quickly it works once you develop a new plan and a new attitude and commit to the discipline to do it. Wealth plans, anyone can have them. Wealth goals, anyone can design them. Wealth habits and disciplines, anyone can develop them. Why not start today? This can be a new day that opens up a new future and creates a new excitement about life and its possibilities for you. The management of time. Wouldn't you agree this has to be one of the master keys to wealth and happiness? I was in South Africa for a lecture tour some years ago, and I picked up this short article by Arnold Bennett on the subject of time. I thought it was excellent, and I'd like to share it with you now. Time, he wrote, is the inexplicable raw material of everything. With it, all is possible. Without it, nothing. The supply of time is truly a daily miracle, an affair genuinely astonishing when one examines it. You wake up in the morning and lo, your purse is magically filled with 24 hours of the unmanufactured tissue of the universe of your life. It is yours. It is the most precious of possessions. No one can take it from you. It is unstealable. And no one receives either more or less than you receive. In the realm of time, there is no aristocracy of wealth and no aristocracy of intellect. Genius is never rewarded by even an extra hour a day. And there is no punishment. Waste your infinitely precious commodity as much as you will, and the supply will never be withheld from you. Moreover, you cannot draw on the future. Impossible to get into debt. You can only waste the passing moment. You cannot waste tomorrow. It is kept for you. You cannot waste the next hour. It is kept for you. I have said the affair is a miracle, is it not? You have this 24 hours of daily time to live. Out of it, you want to spend health, pleasure, money, content, respect, and the evolution of your immortal soul. Its right use, its most effective use, is a matter of the highest urgency and of the most thrilling actuality. All depends on that. Your happiness, the elusive prize that you are all clutching for, my friend, depends on that. Mr. Bennett continues, if one cannot arrange that an income of 24 hours shall exactly cover all proper items of expenditure, one does muddle one's whole life indefinitely. We shall never have any more time. We have, and we have always had, all the time there is. Isn't that well said? Let's consider some approaches to managing our time most effectively. The first approach is to ignore the subject altogether. The man says, I've been late all my life. I can't ever seem to get a handle on my time. Heck with it. I'll just struggle along the best I can. That's okay. It's your life, right? You can do with it as you please. But consider what this attitude might be costing you. Here's the second approach. Step down to something easier. Again, that's okay too. A man works for a company, then decides he wants to own one. When he gets that responsibility, comes to work before everyone else, leaves after everyone else, he now says, I would rather work for someone else's company. Hey, again, it's your life. Success is not a stereotype. There isn't just one model. Know clearly what success means to you and be comfortable with the price you pay for it. You might have heard the story of the little girl who complained to her mother that her daddy never had time to play with her. She said, why doesn't my daddy play with me? He comes home from work, goes to the study and works, comes out for dinner, goes back to work again. I want to play with my daddy. So her mother explained to her, your daddy is very busy. He loves you very much, and that is why he works so hard. At his office, he has so much work to do that he has to bring the rest of it home and finish it here. That is why he can't play with you. The little girl thought for a moment, trying to solve this problem, and came up with the answer. She said, well, why don't they just put him in a slower group? Hey, not a bad idea. Don't throw away other important values in your life just going for one. I went for some things in my life and found out later I had paid too much. If I had known how much they were going to cost, I never would have paid. So that is a consideration. The next approach to time management is to work longer and harder. And we all know the dangers there, right? Unless you aren't working at all, then you probably need to work longer and harder. But for some people, if 10 hours won't do it in a day, they work 12. And if 12 won't do, they move it up to 14. Some people even take on 2 jobs. And there are some very real dangers here, not least of which is health problems that result from not being able to handle the stress. So you've got to be careful with this approach. The last approach, I think, is the best, and that is to get more out of you. In the time you have assigned to labor, make the hours more valuable. The key is not to work harder, but to work smarter. If you're putting in about 8 or 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, that's about it. You can't work much harder. But remember, it's not the hours you put in that counts. It's what you put in the hours. Get more from you to make the investment of time more valuable. And no telling how valuable you can become. We don't lack the capacity. We only lack the ideas and the will and the discipline to carry them out. In considering the subject of time management, remember that a big part of the key for changing is to take it in small steps. Most of us don't make revolutionary changes. We change a few degrees at a time. When you get some life momentum rolling, it's not that easy to make all the changes all at once. Hey, you can't whip a U-turn with the Queen Elizabeth II. When that big ship gets moving, they say it takes 7 miles just to get it stopped. So when it's really moving, you just have to nudge it a little, and finally you get it turned. That's a lot like our lives. A few nudges at a time. But if you're consistent, you can't believe the progress you can make in a fairly short period of time. Here is my first key point on the management of time. Either you run the day, or it runs you. That's fairly simply put, but it is so true. Everything in life is a lot like that. Emotions are a good example. Either you master them, or they will master you. Something is always going to master, and something is always going to serve, whether it's your emotions, your enterprise, or your project. Difficulty will serve or master. Fear, anxiety, inclinations, they all serve or master. We must learn to send our inclinations to school, to teach them how to behave, how best to serve, and to learn their true value. So that is key 1. Get in charge. You be the master. It pays to take a look often and examine all the parts of your life and all the things that you are involved in and all the things that are affecting you so that you can get an intelligent answer to the question, who's in charge here? It's so easy when you get something started to unwittingly relinquish the reins of authority so that it begins to subtly but surely take over. Soon you become the servant. It dictates, it demands, and you respond. So let's turn this whole challenge around. You take over the reins of authority. You subtly but surely take charge. You dictate, you demand, and you will be delighted to see early signs of positive response from your enterprise, your business, and your life. The next time management essential is to learn to say no. I had some difficulty here. It is so easy to say yes to everything, trying to be a nice person, and then have to spend all that time trying to come up with excuses to get out of the obligation. It's one of the great time wasters. How much better to say, no, I don't think I can, but if that changes, I'll give you a call. And isn't it a better feeling to call someone with the good news, I can come, than with the bad news, guess what? I can't come. When in doubt, learn to say no. A friend of mine, Ron Reynolds, has a good saying, don't let your mouth overload your back. That's a great thought to keep in mind when scheduling your time. Here's the next tip. When you work, work, and when you play, play. For time efficiency and for that good feeling that comes from doing something without any guilt feeling, don't mix the two. Many years ago, I used to say, I've got to get my family to the beach. I've been promising to take them to the beach. What are they going to think if I don't take them? Now guess where I am while I'm thinking about the beach. Right, at the office. Now I finally get my family to the beach, but at the beach I'm saying, I should be at the office. I have so much to do. Now I've messed up my beach time with the family by thinking about the office. So I learned this lesson. Make a play day, and a work day, a work day. Don't mix the two. Sure enough, if you say I'm going to take off at 3 o'clock and go play, guess what you are thinking about all morning? Taking off to go play. So don't play at work, and don't work at play. It's a great rule to follow to ensure that your time is used more effectively. Now, I know all of this has to be modified to fit your particular situation. No one rule will apply to all, but keep the main thought in mind. Separate work and play. When I take a lecture tour to Spain or Africa or Australia, I make it a work trip. Every day is filled with lectures, speeches, and business conferences. Then I arrange a play trip, because when I play, I really want to play. A builder friend of mine now has the luxury of working a week and taking off a week. That's what he calls it. Work a week, play a week. However, with weekends on either side of his play week, it's really 9 days. So he works 5 and takes off 9. That is luxury, right? However, the 5 days he works, he really works. Secretaries, accountants, architects, superintendents, long days, around the clock, into the night. 5 heavy, full days. Then he's off to play. So when he works, he really works so that he can save all the playtime for a longer stretch. Now, perhaps we can't all do that, but we can learn to practice the skill of separating work and play. The next time management essential is to analyze how you are. Then if the challenge calls for it, you must either change how you are or change your procedure. That is productivity, waiting to make time pay. Self-analyzing. The first thing to analyze is your periods of greatest productivity throughout the day. If you are a morning person who wakes up early, ready to start the day, that is the best time to do your creative work. You can get more done when you're at your best. Some people are night people, fuzzy in the morning, late to get started, but alert and awake long into the evening. If that's the way you are, then this is the best time to pack in the activity and creativity. The key is to find your best time and use it to its fullest. Next, analyze your habits. If, for example, you're not good at keeping records, get someone to do it for you. If you have promised yourself that you're going to keep your records or balance your checkbook, and this has been going on for a few years, it looks like you aren't that kind of person. Nor are you likely to become that kind of person. You may say, no, I'm really going to do it this time. Hey, I would suggest that a few years is long enough. Don't promise yourself any more. Just say, maybe the smart thing to do is to get someone to do this and make me look good. You would be surprised at how often you can remain a lot like you are in many areas if you will just make the arrangements to have it covered. Some years ago, my office came to the conclusion that I was a poor courier. Someone would ask me to take a check to San Francisco, since I was going there anyway. I would say, sure, no problem. Put the check in my pocket and fly off to San Francisco. Guess when I would next hear about that check? From my dry cleaners. Next time someone says, this document has to go to New York, will you be sure to give it to them this time? I'd say, of course, you can count on me this time. I'm not flaky. So I put the document in my briefcase and head off for New York. Guess what? Right, it would still be in my briefcase when I got back to the office the following week. So there is a saying now in my office, don't give the chairman anything. He's good at some things, but he's a poor courier. Make other arrangements. And that is my point. There is nothing wrong with admitting that you just aren't going to do certain things as long as you are clever enough to make arrangements to have them done. It's much better than continually promising that you will when the chances are good that you won't. Next time management essential, the telephone. What an incredible instrument for business, social, and emergency situations. The job it can do for you is unbelievable. However, there are some tips for using the telephone so that it won't use you. Here's the first one. Before you make a call, make an agenda. An agenda is simply a list of the items you want to talk about, especially if it's a business call. It is one of the better habits to develop. Did you ever make a call and toward the end of the conversation say, let's see, there was something else I was going to talk to you about. I just can't think of it right now, but if I think of it later, I'll call you back. A great time waster, and for a business call, not very sophisticated on your part. Making an agenda before you make a call serves to keep your conversation on course, so that you cover the essentials without missing any of them. Also, it helps to keep the conversation on track and control the tendency to wander into non-essential chit-chat. It is also a money saver. The extra minutes saved by keeping to an agenda and a few pleasantries is major. I know. My business telephone bill just in California got up to $13,000 a month, and this was one of the problems. Doing business internationally, we have learned the incredible savings of both time and money by taking the time to write down an agenda before we begin to dial. And here's another benefit. If you have made an agenda, when it comes time to recall that conversation you had, you've now got the details in writing. When you say, John, how are you doing on those 4 things we talked about the other day? And John says, what 4 things? We didn't talk about that. You now have a written record to show that you did. Remember, people can talk you out of what's in your head, but it's hard to talk you out of what's in your book. Next, if you can afford the luxury, have your calls screened. Then when you pick up the messages, you can decide who to call and when to call, and have the time to formulate the important information before you make the call. Now, this is a luxury, I will admit. It may be that you just have to answer the phone when the call comes in, but at least file this idea away for the future, when you might be able to use it. And one more, the telephone at home. Here you have to exercise great care to not let the telephone intrude. During social time with family or friends, my suggestion is that you shut the phone off. They have all those neat devices now, so you can. Put on the recorder to take messages or just pull the plug. Family is a high priority. Take care that valuable family time is not subject to frequent intrusions. If you set up this rule, you will not only have uninterrupted time with your family and friends, but also they will give you high marks for caring about them enough to make them a priority. Every situation calls for an evaluation of value. You've just got to weigh everything and make the necessary adjustments if you want to get full time and full value out of your life. The next time management tip I have is to listen to the cassette programs and read the books on the subject. You can't possibly get all the ideas you'll need from any one cassette program or person. Remember, you have to go in search of the ideas. They don't just come by. Make a thorough investigation of the subject on your own. Sort out the ideas. Choose those that you think are most valid and put them to work in your life. Next point, be more alert and analyze all your procedures and tools. Old filing methods, old bookkeeping methods. Some things we do can become quickly outdated, especially these days. Check for all the new tools that can help you to use your time more efficiently. Dictating machines, tape recorders, answering devices, computers, calculators. There is just about every tool imaginable in today's marketplace. I now have a fabulous computer in my office that can do the most amazing things and save a great deal of time. I also have a portable computer typewriter that I can take on an airplane or in my motorhome. Then I merely transfer what I have typed onto special cassettes or send the information via telephone back to the main terminal. When I get home, all of my letters and scripts are typed and waiting for my signature or my attention. So take a look. Do some research, do some shopping, find out. No telling how much you can improve your efficiency or multiply your skills by eliminating the barriers and the hindrances so that you are now free to do all the creative things that make for fortune and lifestyle. Now here's an important time saver. Learn to ask questions. This habit will serve in so many ways. Have you ever talked to someone for an hour and then asked some questions and found out that you just wasted the last hour? Make a note. Almost everything is symptomatic of what's really wrong. Surface details don't usually give us enough information to effectively communicate. So, ask questions before. If John isn't making sales, we say, okay, let's get on him about making sales. But perhaps we should ask, why isn't he making sales? Someone says, he isn't making enough calls. We say, okay, let's get on him